Hello everybody, it's Ezra Levant. Let me just adjust my camera here. I'm joining you from the streets of Toronto. But I have news about the province of Alberta because today a disgraced elections commissioner named Lorne Gibson was fired. He was sacked. And it's good news, but it's only a baby step. And there's a lot more battles to come. And I thought I'd do a live chat, a live stream about it, a super chat, because I want to tell you what this means for his war against the rebel, especially his war against Sheila Gunn Reid, our chief reporter and Alberta bureau chief. Let me back up a little bit. Who is Lorne Gibson and what is an election commissioner? Well, it's not the same thing as the chief electoral officer. That's a very old office, a nonpartisan office, someone whose job is to run the election, to make sure the ballots are counted fairly, that the scrutineers scrutinize things. That's a well-established position, and that's not this. This was a special office handpicked by Rachel Notley, the former NDP premier who was thrown out with such gusto by Alberta voters this spring. She created a new office, a hunter-killer prosecutor investigator, to basically hunt down her political enemies, but call it elections commissioning. But please understand, it has nothing to do with elections and everything to do with attacking the enemies of Rachel Notley. And they chose someone who was universally opposed by the other parties in the legislature. And that's a tip-off right there. A chief electoral officer, by comparison, is someone that all parties can say, yeah, he's fair enough, he's nonpartisan enough. It would be quite something if half the parties in a legislature said, oh no, you can't trust that chief electoral officer. The whole thing is trust and neutrality. It's like a judge, really. But this election commissioner, this disgraced loser who was fired today named Lorne Gibson, he was despised by the other parties and not just by the Conservatives. He, in fact, in his previous life, sued the Conservatives. He was sacked for being incompetent. He sued the Conservative Party. He lost. He was laughed out of court. That hater with a vendetta was specifically chosen by Rachel Notley to get her vengeance against the Conservatives. Not just the Conservatives, too. A few weeks ago, I met Stephen Mandel for the first time, if I'm getting that name right, former Edmonton mayor, real liberal, was the leader, I think, of the Alberta Party. Forgive me if I'm getting my details wrong. I mean, he's a good enough guy. I obviously disagree with him on many things. Because his accountant was sick and missed some filing deadline, this guy, Stephen Mandel, was banned for 5 years from seeking public office. I mean, that's Stalinist stuff. And this guy didn't do anything wrong. His accountant missed some paperwork deadline. Imagine how abusive this Lorne Gibson is. Well, there's no need to imagine it. If you go to the Election Commissioner's website, which you can find just with a quick Google, you'll notice something immediately when you click on his penalties page. He only attacked Conservatives. He only, or competitors to Rachel Notley like this Stephen Mandel. And so that's a background. Not the chief electoral officer, not nonpartisan. In fact, sued the Conservatives, so he's as partisan as that Trudeau journalist Rosemary Barton was, who sued the Conservatives. Imagine that. I mean, Rosemary Barton is bad enough suing the Conservatives, but imagine them putting that abusive partisan in a position of like a prosecutor investigator. That's how bad it was. And so it should come as no surprise to you that when we started expressing ourselves as journalists do, opinion journalism is a species of journalism, of course, this thug, this hand-picked thug of Rachel Notley came for us, came for our billboards, came for our lawn signs, and came for our books. And that to me is the most egregious thing of all. For those of you in Alberta and some of you elsewhere, you'll know that our Alberta Bureau Chief, Sheila Gunn-Reid, is a best-selling author. She wrote The Destroyers in 2016, I think it was, taking on Rachel Notley and her new MLAs. Basically, Sheila vetted the NDP in a way that the other journalists had not. Then she wrote an unauthorized biography of David Suzuki, which was another bestseller. So her third bestseller was this book called Stop Notley, which is pretty clear of where it stands. Well-researched, short book. I think it was under 150 pages. Quick read. A great election primer. And I think it went to number 2 or number 1 on the Amazon.ca bestseller list. And by the way, Sheila's book, The Destroyers, I read this in Post Media, so it's got to be true, that it may be the number 1 best-selling political book ever published in Alberta. I think Colby Kosh had suggested that. And I don't doubt it. It was the number 1 book in all of Canada, fiction or non-fiction. Like it was beating like the Harry Potter books. So the New Democrats hated Sheila in a way they didn't hate anyone else. You'll recall that in 2015-16, I forget which, they actually banned Sheila from attending government press conferences in the legislature. They sent an armed sheriff to block her. And it was only after national ridicule that Notley backed down. But that shows you the hatred they've had for her, because she was really the most effective journalist in the whole press corps. And even the other press gallery types didn't like her because she ate their lunch every day. Anyhow, so fast forward to this year, springtime, Sheila rolls out her latest book, Stop Notley. And how do you promote a book when you're a rebel like Sheila? Well, you're not going to get it reviewed in the Toronto Star book pages. You're not going to get it reviewed by the Globe and Mail or even by the National Post. Even though it was literally the number 1 or number 2 best-selling book in Canada. I think it was number 1. Sorry, I'm going from memory. You can check it with a quick Google search. And by the way, non-fiction books in Canada, that's one thing. But to be the number 1 best-selling book of any species, fiction or non-fiction, the best-selling books in Canada are often American books, obviously, just like American TV is the most popular, American music the most popular. So for Sheila's book to be literally the number 1 best-selling thing in all of Canada, like not just Alberta, of course it was number 1 in Alberta, shows you how many people were relying on Sheila for true news about Rachel Notley. All right, so you're saying, Ezra, get to the point. What's your point already? You've been talking for 8 minutes. Here's the point. This thug, Lorne Gibson, wrote us a letter. Actually, didn't even write it to me. I'm the publisher of it. I'm Ezra Levant. I'm the publisher of Rebel News. I'm the owner of the license to the book. Sheila's the author. But I'm the publisher. But he wrote only to Sheila, not to me, the publisher. And why is that important? Because if there was a financial problem or a publishing problem or a legal problem, that's on me, right? I'm the publisher. That means I'm legally responsible for the book. Sheila wrote it, and we paid her some dough for it. And so she got paid to be the author. But that just gave me the words, putting the words on the page, putting the book in the world. That's on me, the publisher. So why did Lorne Gibson go after the author, but not me? Are you with me? I mean, not that I did anything wrong, but why are you deliberately choosing not to go after the publisher, but to go after the author? Are your alarm bells ringing like crazy right now? They should. Anyways, they said to Sheila, your book is illegal. We're investigating it for being illegal, for being an illegal campaign document. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing because it's not funny. It's actually pathetic and sad. And if I were easily scared, I would call it scary too. It's just absurd. That's why I'm laughing. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's absurd. Imagine a government officer, and they phoned, and I think they wrote by snail mail to Sheila saying they were investigating her for her book. Now, I should tell you that we also promoted the book through lawn signs, which I thought was quite clever, if I may say so myself. And my point earlier about the book not being reviewed by the National Post, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the CBC. Normally a book, a Canadian book, it's on the bestseller list. They're going to review it, even if they're going to review it to say we hated it, you know. But they didn't do that, because when the CBC says they hate a book, well, that's a signal to every conservative in the country to go buy it. And they're certainly not going to say they liked the book. So they just decided not to even acknowledge the book and pretend the book didn't exist, despite the total cone of silence, the total embargo on that book by book reviewers. And I bet they read it, by the way. They just didn't want to tell their readership about the #1 best-selling book in Canada. So how do you promote a book if all the literati, all the fancy pants, all the book reviewers won't talk about the book? How do you sell it? That's my job, right? As the publisher. Sheila's job is write the book, and I guess to talk about it and blah, blah, blah. My job as a publisher is to get the book out there. Well, we have email lists and we have videos and stuff, but I thought, and would you agree with me, that a great way to advertise a book during an election is with an election style lawn sign. And it said, and you could Google it, go to stopnotley.com. So we had a website selling it, and we had lawn signs that said stopnotley.com, buy the book. I see someone just super chatted, how much was it? I'm going from memory here. I think we sold it fairly affordably. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I think we sold the book for maybe 10 or 15 bucks. You know what, you go on Amazon and find that out yourself. It wasn't a long book, so you're not going to charge 30 bucks for a book that's less than 150 pages. I think we charged for the paperback $15 maybe 10, probably 15. And for the ebook, 5 or 10 bucks. That's sort of normal for a book like this on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, it might have even been free or something. I don't know how Amazon Prime does that. I think there was some good deals to be had. Look, it wasn't an expensive book, but we weren't giving it away for free. And I should tell you that the election finance law that they were investigating Sheila under has a specific exemption for books. As in, it specifically says right in the law that books or the promotion of books are exempt from election finance laws, because of course they are. Just the same way, you're not going to have an election finance investigation of a newspaper editorial that endorsed party number 1 or party number 2. So this wasn't even some mystic interpretation by my lawyers or something. It's in black and white, in fairly plain English in the law, a specific section added on just to protect books and the promotion of books. So there was no gray area here. There was one rule that the book had to be sold at a commercial price. And like I say, 5 or 10 bucks, whatever it was, that's absolutely a commercial price. That's the same price we sell most of our books at. The books that are, 150 pages or whatever, you're going to get those from us for 5, 10 bucks, 15 bucks, maybe, whatever. So they started hunting Sheila, the author. But hang on, how on earth is the author even in violation of election law? I'm the publisher. If the publication of the book, if the price of that book, if the timing of that book, if the advertising of that book, if anything in the publication of that book is against the law, that's on my head. That I'm the publisher. What's the author got to do with it? Other than they had the thoughts, they had the ideas, but they specifically targeted Sheila and never me. Isn't that weird? They targeted Sheila Gunn Reid to be an author They did not target the publisher, who would be the only person covered by the act. They hired not one, but two ex-cops to lead the investigation of Sheila. They didn't even hire bureaucrats. They hired an ex-RCMP officer, if I recall, and an ex-Edmonton Police Service officer to hunt Sheila for months and months and months. And after a while, we thought, well, let's sting the stinger. And I saw someone mention Tommy Robinson here. Well, we took a page out of Tommy's book. You might recall, those who follow Tommy Robinson, that when he was being hunted by John Sweeney of the BBC program Panorama, well, he recorded Sweeney. He sent a friend of his to give the dirt to John Sweeney, but in fact, that friend, Lucy Brown, recorded Sweeney and his bad behavior. And so Tommy published his hidden camera stuff and absolutely nuked the BBC, and John Sweeney got sacked. In fact, it was unbelievable. In our own small way, we did that. Sheila took these phone calls from these hired police. Lorne Gibson, the thug, the hand-picked bully for Rachel Notley, hired two cops to go after Sheila. And they called her up and 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 hassled her. And Sheila recorded it. And you can, if you go to savesheila.com, you can hear the recording of one of these cops, I forget his name, I'm glad to say, saying, if you don't give us your author's notes, your editorial notes, you will be in for a, quote, severe punishment. Hang on a second. What's that got to do with publication, advertising, finance, distribution, timing? I mean, if this thug would have called me up, I would have given him what for. I wouldn't have bent the knee. But at least it would have had some logical sense going after the publisher. But why are you going after the journalists? And specifically demanding editorial notes? What, you're literally a government agent. You're a disgraced, frankly, ex-cop who you're going after an author and demanding editorial notes? Yeah, no. So we recorded that and published that, and holy moly, did people ever see the true nature of this Lorne Gibson, and more to the point, Rachel Notley. Now, in the end, they blinked on the book prosecution, but again, go to savesheila.com and you'll see in his letter to Sheila, where he said he was grudgingly dropping the case against her, he said, "You're lucky that I can only enforce the law as it's written. You better be careful, Sheila Gunn Reid. You're lucky I can only prosecute what's written in the law." Yeah, you maniac. That's how the law works. You can only prosecute what's in it. You bully, you Stalinist, you Maoist thug, you authoritarian megalomaniac. Imagine some law enforcer saying to a perfectly innocent person, well, fine, you're innocent, but only because there's no law banning what you did, but if I had my way, I'd get you. I mean, what an asshole, sorry. So that was the letter, but we still incurred tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees fighting against that. But I should tell you, there are two other legal actions against us by this same thug, Lorne Gibson. So he was fired today by Jason Kenney. But that doesn't undo what he's put us through. Now, like I say, this disgraced Lorne Gibson, loser, election commissioner, handpicked Notley crony, he was dumped today. And I mentioned that he dropped the book investigation against Sheila because he could only enforce what the law is. Yeah, oh my God. But he still has other matters proceeding against us. As you may know, we love the billboards. We love Jumbotron trucks, as I call them. Those are the mobile billboards on the back of a truck with the LED display. We love those. And we love the big static billboards at the side of the highway. In fact, we sort of have a permanent one on Highway 2 in Alberta. So he prosecuted us for that, and he fined us $5,500. And we said, like hell, we'll never pay. We're appealing. And then in a very weird move, he said, okay, I won't fine you $5,500. I'll just reprimand you, thinking that would make us drop our appeal. But it did not. We're proceeding with the appeal because I'm not going to take a reprimand from that weirdo. No thanks. So we're appealing that. But we're not just appealing that super weird reprimand. We're challenging the constitutionality of the law. You know, that new law that was brought in with the new election commissioner? Alberta, for more than 100 years, was just fine without an election commissioner and this bullying law. Alberta did just fine. And isn't it funny that when the authoritarian socialist bullies are elected, they think they need a new law and they think they need a new enforcer to help them keep power. So they brought in this new law, very, very long, very complicated, although the one section about books is pretty clear. And they brought in Lorne Gibson. So he prosecuted us, convicted us, fined us. We appealed. He dropped the fine. You can't do that. That's not a thing. But we're appealing anyways. But understand the most important thing. We are challenging the constitutionality of the entire law. The law that is being used to abuse so many conservative groups. And I say again, if you go to the election commissioner's website, you will see that he almost exclusively targets conservatives. I do note that he went after another rival of Rachel Notley's called Stephen Mandel, who ran for the Alberta Party. But other than that, it's pretty much conservatives all the way down. So we're challenging the constitutionality on behalf of everybody. And here's my point. Lorne Gibson is gone, but his damage to us remains, and our appeal to his conviction of us remains, and our constitutional challenge remains. And here's the most upsetting part. Jason Kenney and his Attorney General Doug Schweitzer are fighting against our constitutional challenge. So let me slow that down and say it again. This whole law that the election commissioner was appointed to prosecute, we're challenging it because it's garbage. It's unconstitutional, it's illegal, violates free speech, freedom of association, freedom of the press, all that. So Lorne Gibson is gone, but the law is not. We want the law thrown out because we believe it's unconstitutional. Well, who's defending the law? Doug Schweitzer, Jason Kenney's Justice Minister. He's fighting us tooth and nail. We are still fighting to have the law repealed, and Kenney's Justice Minister is pouring countless resources, surely hundreds of thousands of dollars by now, to support the law that was drafted by Rachel Notley in opposition to the Conservatives. So riddle me this. Rachel Notley brings in a terrible law. Jason Kenney opposes the terrible law. The terrible law is used against us at the Rebel. We're appealing this terrible law and challenging its constitutionality. And Doug Schweitzer defends it with the full might of the Justice Department. Can you help me figure that one out? We're also appealing the particular ruling against our billboards. That's separate. So one thing is challenging the constitutionality, and Doug Schweitzer's defending the constitutionality. The other is we're appealing the actual ruling that our billboard was illegal. Lorne Gibson made that ruling, but the chief electoral officer maintains that ruling. It's still his. He's still defending that. So we are still fighting a two-front war, one of them against the chief electoral officer, who will inherit the rulings and the powers of this election commissioner. And number two, we're fighting against the constitutionality of the law, and we're being pushed back against by Doug Schweitzer. Anyhow, I hope I haven't gotten too legalistic here, and I see some super chats saying I'm getting into the gobbledygook, and I apologize for that. but it is a legal battle. So let me summarize here. And by the way, thank you for the super chatters. And to learn more about this, including to hear the recording of the thugs threatening Sheila, and to see the bizarre letter from Lorne Gibson saying, "You're lucky, I can only enforce the law as it's written," you can get all that at savesheila.ca or .com, it's both. So let me summarize. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Lorne Gibson's gone. But the law he prosecuted remains on the books. And Jason Kenney's leftist Justice Minister, Doug Schweitzer, is upholding the law and fighting against our constitutional challenge of it. And all the rulings against us, against our billboards, they're still on the books. We're appealing those too. And the new election officer, his name is Glenn Ressler, if I'm not mistaken, he's still fighting us. So literally the only thing that's changed is it's not Rachel Notley's hand-picked guy anymore. It's some other guy working with the approval of Jason Kenney and Doug Schweitzer. I don't get it. But I do know this. We are going to keep fighting like hell, and we're going to keep litigating. And I know it makes sense for us just to throw in the towel. I mean, we could have paid the $5,500 fine, and frankly, we could walk away now and just take the reprimand. Sorry, I'm not being reprimanded by some government loser because I have an opinion. I do not accept that reprimand. And by the way, when we strike down the constitutionality of this law, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for all Albertans, and frankly, it'll be a bit of a precedent for the whole country. So that's what's going on there. Anyways, I've been doing this for 26 minutes. Let's take 3 minutes of questions. If there's any super chats, I'll do my best to read those. And otherwise, I'm going to call it quits in 3 minutes. Keep fighting, Ezra. Freedom-loving Canadians got your back. Thank you very much. I know that's true because we've spent a lot of dough on lawyers and it's come from crowdfunding. John Taylor, Ezra just wants money. Haha. Well, no, because if I just wanted money, I would have walked away. The fine we were dealt was $5,500, and then even that was dropped. We're choosing to appeal and spending tens of thousands of dollars to appeal because we want the law struck down. When does the war start? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Love from England, Ezra. Thank you very much. I was just there with Tommy on Thursday. Ezra, will you go to Hong Kong again? Well, have you been mind reading me? It said we got a mind reader here. Ezra, email your buddy Kenny. Well, I did see Kenny actually for the first time in 2 years. I saw him in Edmonton the other day and he was quite friendly. We shook hands twice. When does fake tan blacking become blacking up? Well, I don't know. You got to ask Justin Trudeau. Ezra, keep up the good work and thank you. I missed the rest of that. Wow, thanks. Gazoid Tommy is transparent to me. I don't know what that means. In my mind, Tommy Robinson he's a friend of mine, but he's also someone who fights against police abuses, rape gangs, and he fights for free speech. Kenny is Mr. Dithers. I'm not sure if I would come to that conclusion yet. He's moving quite quickly on some things. Thanks for your hard work, keeping it real. Well, thank you very much. Sheila is the one who's on the front lines out there, and she's the one who got these bullying phone calls. I'm very glad she didn't bend the knee. I think a lot of people would have wobbled. You got a couple of cops harassing you on the phone again. I think a normal person would say, oh, hell, what am I doing? Why do I need this stress? Sheila fights hard. Thanks from England. Well, thank you very much. Viva Katie Hopkins. Fire the cops who worked for Gibson, the ASAP. Yeah, I think so. Do you honestly have faith in the courts? Well, my faith was starting to wane, I'll be very honest. But then we had this amazing victory about a month ago when the Federal Court of Canada ordered the Trudeau's Debate Commission to let us report on the leaders' debates. I was stunned by that. So we had a real win there. So that keeps hope alive for me. Nope, I don't have single faith in our system. All right, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Ezra, keep doing what you do. Well, thanks very much. It's a team effort. We got Kian Bexty, David Menzies, Sheila Gunn-Reid, and we got a ton of people behind the scenes too who work in the office and they don't get public credit. I'm just trying to catch up here. How can we call the UCP and hold them accountable? Oh, I got an idea. The UCP is having a convention in Calgary at the end of the month. That's an idea. Don Cherry is an NHL hero. Oh, we got a petition in support of Don. It's supportdoncherry.com. Last I checked, we had just under 90,000 signatures. Ezra, what about the white poppy? No, in my mind, the poppy should be red with a green or black center. Is Jessica still with the Rebel? Jessica Svetanevsky? No, we left on friendly terms. She went part-time and then she just said goodbye to us, but on the friendliest terms. And I see she's doing a little bit of freelance work here and there. T. Carmen, will Trudeau appeal the decision? Yes, he's already filed an appeal of that. And again, we can walk away, right? But I'm not going to walk away. Who else is going to fight these civil liberties fights? You can't rely on the Canadian Civil Liberties Union. You make no sense. All right, well, sorry you think so. I'm trying my best to explain the legal stuff. Maybe I don't have a perfect understanding of it. While the Canadian Prime Minister swears allegiance to the Crown, watch the ceremony, you have no chance of getting your country back. No, I disagree with you there. I think having the Crown is a sort of guarantor of our liberties. Should the UCP hold referendum on teachers' pensions? You know, I don't know enough about that subject to give you a smart opinion. I see some thumbs up there too. It's going fast. Ezra, keep going. Zionist shill. Not really a shill. I mean, a shill implies I'm doing something for someone else. I am a Zionist. What's that got to do with anything we've talked about here today? Ezra's a stud. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. Scott Coulter, but, you know, I'm already taken. Max for Buffalo, keep up the fight, champ. A lot of you people should smarten up. Will you be interviewing the person charged with defacing the statue? Yeah, I don't know about that. Where is Laura Loomer? She's in the States. I hear she's running for Congress. Epstein still lives? No, I don't think so. I think he was killed. Thank you, Ezra. Well, thank you very much. Israel did 9/11. That's clearly not true. Who are you? I'm Ezra Levant. I'm the Rebel Commander, Rebel News. Ezra admitted he supports the Greater Israel Project. All right, we're getting off topic here. I think I should wrap up anyways. My conversation today had nothing to do with religion or Israel, but I think there's some obsessed people on the line. Today we were talking about freedom of speech, challenging the constitutionality of illegal laws, and an interesting development in Alberta where Lorne Gibson, the out-of-control election commissioner, was sacked. I'd invite you to go to savesheila.com to learn more about the case. I'm going to sign off for now. I just wanted to give you this update to explain that Lorne Gibson's gone, but our fight remains. And bizarrely, it's Jason Kenney's Justice Minister who is fighting against us. All right, folks, thanks for your time. Bye-bye.